Solo leveling actually has 30 hidden Easter eggs from Marvel, Dragonball, God of War, and even Dark Souls. So let me show you every single secret I've found, starting with Chapter 0. Did you know that Tusk, Iron, and Igris weren't always as badass as they are now? In this chapter, they were originally gonna look like these guys. Yeah, seriously, right? I mean, Igris' design isn't too bad, but since it's pretty much the same, just minus his slick cape. And Iron? He's still pretty buff, but Tusk, like damn. Why he look like a chubby dude with a stick? Now let me show you some insane details you might not have noticed in the anime, especially in the outro request. Fans even speculate that it references the back rooms and Five Nights at Freddy's. But here's what I found. First, on the edge of this CCTV footage, there's an IP address. It displays numbers like 176, 113, 45, and a last number that keeps changing. It goes 4, 8, 9, and then 17. These numbers aren't just random. They're actually about specific chapters in the manhwa. Like the 4 stands for Chapter 4, where Jinwoo and his party fought those scary statues. Chapter 8 is when Jinwoo and the remaining people in their party enter the altar. And Chapter 9 is when Jinwoo, Jo-hee, and Mr. Song get left behind. Chapter 17 is where Jinwoo beats his first dungeon boss, the King of the Swamp. The third number flipped between 44 and 45. In Chapter 44, Jinwoo totally defeated the armored soldiers and found out his new job. Then in Chapter 45, it was revealed that Jinwoo's job was a necromancer. That's also where he said the iconic line, "Arise." Then, Chapter 113 was a big fight between Chae-in and Igris. And the first number in the IP address actually represented Chapter 176, where Jinwoo took down Antares, the Monarch of Destruction. In the outro, you'll see many scenes featuring elevators, halls, or floors which represent the story's levels or dungeons. But the really interesting thing I've noticed is the tree located in the middle of a white room. In theory, the tree could be a sign of where Jinwoo and Chae-in first met in Chapter 186, but then just a little later in the outro, the tree is on fire. This doesn't make sense. Why would Jinwoo burn something that's important to him? Another possibility is the burning tree might actually symbolize a system created by the architect. When it burns, it might show Jinwoo breaking free from the system. Some people also suggested that the tree might relate to when Jinwoo met Ashbourne. Therefore, the burning of the tree could symbolize Ashbourne's departure and Jinwoo's ascent as the new monarch of shadows. In the next scene, you'll see a shadow approaching a door. And of course, that shadow is the OG Shadow Monarch. He's the one opening the door for Jinwoo. Yet the most insane part is this dude sitting in a room, staring at the CCTV screens. This guy might actually be Ashbourne, constantly watching Jinwoo. A few scenes later, you'll see Ashbourne is gone and the screen turns red. This means Ashbourne has totally left and isn't watching Jinwoo anymore. That's because Jinwoo is now the new Shadow Monarch. In this intense scene, Jinwoo is running through the floors, looking really scared. Why? Because with each new level he reaches, he's constantly facing death. I mean, wouldn't you be scared if you were in his shoes? But as Jinwoo continues running, you'll see he's approaching a door. This door symbolizes the power that Ashbourne left for him. There are also many details you missed in the first chapter, like the Korean Hunter Association was there from the very beginning. Did you see their logo? It's on the tapes and even on the coffee server's hat. Also, if you look closely at the sacrificial altar, it looks a lot like the Aztec calendar, which is a crazy detail since the Aztecs did lots of human sacrifices because they thought it would help keep the sun shining. Guys, do you remember in the webtoon when the coffee server was giving coffee to the hunters at the construction site? Then Jinwoo tries to order. The coffee guy can't give him any because he's run out of coffee. I don't know why they took that part out, but maybe the animators felt bad for Jinwoo. In Chapter 3, am I tripping, or does the statue of God look like a bald pope at first? And then suddenly it's like the Statue of Liberty? Plus, there are Lord of the Rings references in this chapter. Remember the first guy who tried to walk to the door? The statue that instantly killed him looks exactly like Sauron. Yep, the Sauron. Like, look at him, the helmet and the mace? That's not a coincidence. That's why one does not simply walk into Mordor, or should I say, the door, or you'll end up like that guy. In Chapter 4, if you look closely, you'll see that the commandments in the webtoon are written in Hebrew script. This is a reference to Moses' stone tablets for the 10 Commandments. In fact, the first commandment of the dungeon is, one must worship God which is kind of the same as the biblical commandment, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Both lines show worship. Side note, in the anime the commandments kind of look like Nordic runes. Close, but not quite, unless they are actually Nordic runes. So after Jinwoo was dished and ritually sacrificed, he woke up in the hospital. Then you'll see that the daily quest goals are actually the same routine that Saitama did in One Punch Man. And since Jinwoo proves that this exact workout will give you a god bod, I think you should start doing it, because I want to do it too. Oh, by the way, you see those statues in chapter 10? They actually remind me of the god warrior mechas from the 1984 Studio Ghibli film, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Now, one of my favorite Easter eggs is Jinwoo wearing a shirt in chapter 16 that looks a lot like the classic Ben 10 t-shirt. Iron Man also appeared in Solo Leveling, and not just once, but twice. The first time in chapter 46 where he's secretly fanboying over Jinwoo in the crowd. Also, there's our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, chilling on the top of a stack of books, including Marvel, Disney, One Piece, Faust, and even the Solo Leveling light novel. Speaking of light novels, in chapter 26, Jinwoo's pose is exactly like the one on the original light novel cover. Now, about the second time Iron Man shows up, it was in chapter 78, where his picture was literally in a frame. That's why there are funny theories that Juhi's dad is Iron Man, which is still possible because, Tony's a playboy, I think, right? Another Marvel reference is when Captain America appears in chapter 61, but instead of being stuck on ice, he's smiling on the ground, inside a monster's rib. Bro, Steve, what are you doing in there? Also in chapter 95, you're gonna see both Captain America and Batman's shields, which I think is a reference to the one-shot comic from 1997 where Batman and Captain America teamed up to beat Joker and Red Skull. And in chapter 68, check out this book reference, What is History by Edward Carr. There are also anime references as well, like in chapter 110 you'll see the macho Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist. And remember the red-haired S-rank pretty boy? The guy with fire magic? Yup, Choi Jong-in. This dude was inspired by Aizen from Bleach. He's like the Madara before Madara. In chapter 65, you can see Choi's rings light up and shoot out energy when he uses his magic. That's because his rings are like power boosters. They make his magic much stronger and work better. Another reference is in chapter 112 when Chai was reading the Korean news. We see this poster, which is kind of similar to the poster of the movie Parasite. Next, let's talk about character names with hidden meanings, like Kim Chol. The second part, Chol, can mean different things, but it mostly means iron or metal. So Kim Chol can be like saying Kim Iron or Kim Metal. And did you know that Beru's name comes from a French author named Bernard Werber? He wrote a book called Empire of the Ants in 1991. Now, the monarch of destruction Antares gets his name from the brightest star in the Scorpius constellation, which is also known as the heart of the scorpion. You know what guys, I've been itching to chat about this for a while. Let's talk about hunters for a sec. This word reminds us of another beloved series where some special group of people go on adventures to hunt monsters and find treasure. Yep, I'm talking about Yoshihiro Togashi's Hunter x Hunter. But the similarities don't end there. In Solo Leveling, there's the Jeju Island arc, with ants and an ant king, just like in Hunter x Hunter's Chimera Ant arc. These ants evolve, start liking the taste of humans, and even gain human-like intelligence just like the Chimera ants. In chapter 48, when Jinwoo and some hunters were in the Red Gate, the elves were called Hyaki, or Ice Slayers. Hyaki is a word from a Japanese story called Hyaki Yagyo, which means Night Parade of 100 Demons. It's about a big parade of thousands of monsters called Oni and Yokai, where they march through the streets of Japan at night. Also, the Night Parade of 100 Demons is featured in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where Geto summoned thousands of cursed spirits in Shinjuku. Did you know that you can actually tell how strong monsters are by their color? Like in chapter 51, the bears have different colored mana cores on their chests. The regular bears have blue ones, but the leader bears have purple ones, showing they're stronger. It's the same thing with the ice elves too. This is also why Jinwoo's shadows change from blue to purple, because they have grown stronger. Next up is Hwang Dong-soo. We never get to see the real power of this guy, but in chapter 47, there's a part where he arrives at the airport and meets Woo Jun-chul. Suddenly, Hwang Dong-soo's eyes turn red. Fans say this always happens when he's using his special powers. This is also why people walking by start feeling dizzy. Why? Because Hwang Dong-soo is using his powers, making the air feel super heavy around him. If Sun Jinwoo was once the weakest hunter in the world, then this hunter, James, has got to be the unluckiest hunter in the world. Why? Well, in chapters 56 and 111, he doesn't just get a visit from one, but two super powerful monarchs, and also from Jinwoo's really strong dad, poor James. Speaking of dads, Jinho's dad makes his first appearance in chapter 57, and his future was already hinted at by the painting of a red-crowned crane in the background. In Korea, this crane, called durumi or hak, is seen as a symbol of longevity with purity and peace. In Taoism, it's even a symbol of immortality. Jinho's dad didn't become immortal, but he got a second chance at life because Jinwoo saved him from his eternal slumber. Next, in chapter 90, when Jinwoo's mom had finally woken from the eternal slumber, you'll see in the doctor's bookshelves there's this book called Me Before You, which is a pretty good book, so you should read it. There are video game references as well, like in chapter 71, where there's a troll from the game God of War. And by the way, gamers hate these guys because they're annoying, because they're so repetitive and there's so many of them. In the same chapter, did you see the dude wearing red armor? Kind of looks like it's from the game For Honor. You know, the armor looks a lot like what Lawbringer wears as his usual outfit. Oh, and have you ever played Ninja Gaiden or Dead or Alive? Because in chapter 68, Ryu Hayabusa, the ninja from those games, shows up too. In chapter 72, see those big high orc bodyguards of Tusk? They look a lot like champions Udyr, Garen, Yasuo, and Darius from League of Legends. Wait, does that also mean Tank is Volibear? I mean, even the Monarch, Rakan, has the same name as Rakan from League of Legends. To be honest, I'm not sure which one is the original, but I like the meaning of the name Rakan. In Arabic, Rakan means noble, while in Zen Buddhism, Rakan means the worthy, and is the highest title given to disciples. Talking about game inspirations, there are some characters in Solo Leveling who are obviously inspired by Dark Souls. Just look at Icarus. He definitely looks like Artorias from that game. Side note, Artorias was totally inspired by Guts' Berserker armor from Berserk. The same Dark Souls theme applies to the Demon King Baden, who is inspired by the Nameless King and the Architect who resembles Dark Lurker. Since I mentioned Berserk, there's a crazy Easter egg that's exactly similar in both Solo Leveling chapter 52 and Berserk's chapter 42. Let me show you. In Solo Leveling chapter 52, there was an intense moment where Kim Chol began counting from 1 to 3, threatening to kill everyone around him. Just as he reached 3, out of nowhere, Jinwoo appeared, right behind him saying, 4, and then BAM! He smacked Kim Chol so hard that he crashed right through the ground. And this is 100% similar to what happened in chapter 42 of Berserk. In that scene, the Kushan warrior Silet was counting from 1 to 3, and then Guts appeared from behind him, said 4, and kicked Silat, making him crash to the ground too. Coincidence?
I think not!
We also get to see something interesting about Jinwoo's sister, Gina, because in chapters 80 and 102, this girl is a big fan of BTS. I mean, DTS. That's what they're called in this world. But what does the D stand for? Don't get me wrong. It could be dragon. And speaking of dragons, in chapter 80 there's this neat detail when Tusk uses his spell, Hymn of the Fire Dragon. His hood magically turns into a real dragon's head. In chapter 91, the artist made a funny mistake. In the gym where S-rank hunters were mostly prepping for the Jeju Island raid, you'll see regular people just walking in the background like nothing's happening. I mean, why would there be civilians walking around in a place where super strong people can kill you in an instant? That doesn't make sense. Now that's what you call a real...
big mistake.
Now back in chapter 89, we discovered that Min Byung really likes watching historical dramas. And it seems like Beru picked up a bit of Min Byung's love for those TV shows because, well, you know, he ate Min Byung during the Jeju Island raid. Fast forward to chapter 108. Did you know that these white flowers had a meaning? They're called white chrysanthemums, often referred to as mumps. People in Europe and Asia commonly use them for funerals, since they've been a symbol of death and sadness. In chapter 110, a gate shows up in the middle of the road, causes a big traffic jam. If you look at the cars stuck in traffic, you'll see weird words on their license plates like whale, Guzvi, nano, and eureka. Fans say that whale is a word used in video games, especially in gacha games where you collect characters by chance. A whale is someone who spends a lot of money to get really rare or super strong characters or overpowered items. To be honest, in terms of Guzvi, I'm not sure about that word. Nano could mean a couple things. It might mean something super tiny. In science, nano means 1/billionth of something. Like a nanosecond is 1/billionth of a second, or nano could be about nano games, which are quick and easy games. Eureka is what people say when they suddenly understand something or find something really interesting. But Guzvi, yeah, I still don't know what Guzvi means. Another One Punch Man reference appears in chapter 196, where Jinwoo's son, Suho's expression literally looks like Saitama's bored face. This is because Suho is so strong that he easily one-punches every demon in hell. Now, remember this mofo? Of course, we all do. Well, there's a funny Easter egg about that thing in chapter 126. This happened when Jinwoo was fighting the architect, and when Jinwoo finally got his hands on the smiling statue, he punched it so hard that its face instantly cracked, and it ended up getting Yamcha'd. Like damn. But I've been thinking, can Jinwoo do the same thing when he fights the most powerful Isekai characters?